thought I'd do a quick coffee vlog for you today. I tried to do it yesterday, but the weather was rubbish. As you can probably tell from the light, it's not a lot better today, but I need to get some videos filmed, so off we go. Several things are happening at the moment. First off, January 2018, When Frogs Sing, January 2018, my year-long journaling class that I do every year will be 5 in 2018. It's my 5th year. Woo! Secondly, although I've been teaching since 2006 because I started over on alongside Tam over on Willowing, and I ran a couple of classes there for her. And then in 2008 I branched out on my own. So 2018 will be my 10th year of teaching. Very exciting. And in November, I will be starting my 10th year of NaNoBoSMo. It's all happening. Those don't really have anything to do with, only very loosely, with what I'm going to talk to you about, but it's an achievement. You know, sticking with something for 10 years, sticking with a job for 10 years, running my company for 10 years. It's good. It's a good feeling. Running a class, an ongoing year-long class for 5 years. It feels good. And I was blown away when I realised that I'd done NaNoBoSMo. This was my 10th year doing NaNoBoSMo, because you'll know me in challenges. I mean, how far behind am I with Inktober? I've done about half of it so far. I've got some catching up to do. Anyway, I wanted to do something different this year, and I wanted to tie it in with my Patreon. Now, before everybody goes, oh, Patreon, we don't listen to that. My Patreon is my classes. Always has been, always will be. It's just a different way of paying for them. Simple as that. I used to do it all through PayPal. Patreon is so much easier. It gives people the option to pay what they want. They can pay when they want. They can pay how they want. And if they can't afford it, they can drop out whenever they want. It's as simple as that. And I like that. I don't like having to deal with a whole load of setup and managing a shop and all that. I don't want to do that. I don't like admin. The less admin I can do, the better. That's why I put my class payments onto Patreon. So everything that always was on YouTube is still on YouTube, and everything that was my classes that I used to have a completely separate site for and still do is now also on Patreon as a separate option. How do these two come together? They come together through NaNoBoSMo. Yeah. This goes back to, I believe it was my 3rd year of NaNoBoSMo. I had done 2 years of NaNoBoSMo as a fan fiction, and, oh, I'm sorry, 3 years. I did my first 2 years in fan fiction. My 3rd year, I had to do a creative writing, journaling, kind of reflective diary thing for my teaching, and it had to be 60,000 words. So I thought, well, if I can bang out 50,000 words in November, I can relax about the rest of it and just add that later on. So that's what I did for the 3rd year. For the 4th year, knowing how long it took me to do 50,000 words in hours, I decided to switch it up a bit. Because you know me, after 3 years I'm bored. So I did a graphic novel. Nobody ever saw it. It was terrible. But I really wanted to challenge myself, and I wanted to try putting words and pictures together. So I worked out how long I would need to spend on the art, how long I would need to spend on the writing. And although it wasn't technically 50,000 words, it was, I believe, 20,000 words altogether. And then the rest of the time, the hours, was taken up with art. And it roughly, very roughly, worked out to 1/3 of the time in hours was dedicated to writing and the story. And the other 2/3 was dedicated to the art and the layout. And that worked out really well. That was a really fun challenge. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Since then, I went back to fan fiction again. The last couple of years, I've done it as kind of writing the curriculum for my When Frogs Sing class. See, it's coming back around. I know it's rambly and tangenty, but, you know, when have I ever gotten straight to the point? My year-long class, I've always taught it as a proper curriculum, structured class that I knew what I was going to do in advance, I knew how I was going to do it. We've had a textbook that we followed along with, all that kind of stuff. It's all been very teachery. Well, this year I had a revelation in that, yes, teaching is all very well, but that takes a heck of a lot of time out of the creativity part. And at the end of the day, people don't really care as much about having a structure as they do about content. They don't care if they do one thing one week and then something completely different the next week, as long as they're getting the content. And that's the beauty of teaching an unstructured class. You can do something this month and then in 3 months' time, come back to it and say, okay, you know, when we researched this 3 months ago, well, let's take another look at that. And people are okay with that because it's a year-long class and they're jumping around and they're doing a bit of this, a bit of that, keeps it interesting. And for me, the part that makes it not interesting is the admin. And I don't want to use my NaNoBoSMo yet again for writing my class for next year, because that's not how I'm working anymore. I'm working, well, I've got November's structure, which is what I'm going to talk to you about in a second. I've got December's structure. Obviously, December we do the Christmas Chronicles. We've done it every year. We're going to do it a little bit differently this year. And then January, I've had a couple of people who said, well, here's an idea that I'd like to do. For instance, somebody wanted to concentrate on how to do correspondences and things. So I thought, you know, perhaps January we could do correspondences. That's not set in stone. Don't take my word on that just yet, because I do have flashes of inspiration and go, oh, but it'd be better if we did this first. But that's how doing an astrology podcast every week came to be, because I mentioned astrology and somebody said, oh, I've always been interested in astrology. I'd love to do that. So we did our charts and everybody was really excited about it. So, you know, and there's so many other things that I do that I can teach and still have it related to book arts and journaling. That's where NaNoBoSMo comes in. For the last 10 months, I've been kind of coaching my class. I don't really class it as teaching anymore. I kind of class it as coaching. We come up with what we want to do and then I show them how I would approach that. And, you know, we research it together and we look into it together. I tell them what I already know about it, and then that gives them a platform to go off and research for themselves, decide if that's something they're interested in or not, you know, and all that kind of good stuff. And then we do some art surrounding it and so on. And all of that goes in here for me, which is my workbook of shadows. Now, this is a series of Moleskine cahiers where I put my astrology notes. I do just odd bits and pieces, like if I see something on the internet that I think, oh, I might try that. Tarot spreads, spell work, rituals, recipes even. Anything that I see that I think, oh, I'd quite like to try that at some point. Things that I cut out of magazines, because I don't like magazine bits going in my book of shadows. I decided I prefer it to be handwritten. So anything like that that I collect. And then what I want to do for November is spend the time going through all of these and collating the information, working out what I want to keep, what's important, what's not important, writing up stuff that I've done, because I haven't written up stuff in a couple of months and I really need to get on that before I start to forget things, and put it into this one, which is my book of shadows. For those who haven't seen this before, this is it's a Bible journal. It's called a Bible journal. It's got believe on the front and it's got a quote that is completely spelled wrong. And it says, I believe that the most beautiful thing is worth waiting for and the sweetest fruit needs patience. It's gold edged. I have another one that is silver edged. This one is plain. The other is lined. And yes, I will put a link down below to where I got them. I actually bought mine on eBay, but you can get them on Amazon these days. They're fabulous little books. They work well for if you're going to do a lot of writing, but not necessarily a lot of art. As you can see, I do a lot of writing. I have the tiniest writing in the world, so I'm trying to find you things I can show you. This one I did on camera, actually, which was just a This was actually a video. I did the art on camera, and the rest of it was my thoughts on a question that I was asked on YouTube. So that was an interesting one. I do things like oil recipes and stuff like that, how to put an oil recipe together and things. So I don't add a lot of extra stuff into my book. That's where I'm going with this. I don't stick things in. I don't add pull-outs and stuff. Occasionally I will, but not very often, because it's 600 pages. Like, seriously, you really don't need to add any extra to a book this thick and heavy. Trust me. What I've also realised is that over the last 10 months, I really haven't transferred an awful lot of what I've put in here to in here. So that's NaNoBoSMo in a nutshell. I want to take everything that I've got in rough currently and put it into my keeps file, if you like. Let's put it that way. I don't want to give you the impression that you have to have a book of shadows to do this challenge. You don't. There are plenty of people who do things like Reiki or crystals or herbs or tarot readings or astrology who don't consider themselves a witch and who don't therefore have a book of shadows, okay? I don't want you to get that impression. I'm just using it because that's what I'm doing. But I don't want you to get the impression that you have to do that. I've actually got 2 girls in my class who are devout Christians. One is, she's part Christian, part Native American. So she does a bit of both. And the other one is absolutely 100% devout Christian, but she uses my techniques for her Bible journaling. So, you know, you don't have to be a witch to do my classes or to follow along with this challenge. You do need to have something that you are interested in that is sufficiently journal worthy. Let's put it that way. That could be anything from herbs, crystals, Reiki, all that kind of stuff. You might be into astrology. You might be a Bible journaler, for instance. You might be a gardener. You might be somebody who loves cooking and wants to put together their own recipe book. There's nothing stopping you doing your own thing, because I'm not going to be teaching you what I'm doing in here. I'm going to be showing you how I go about doing what I'm doing in here. It's a slight difference. So it's more about format and structure than it is about content. The content is the part that relates to NaNoWriMo, the 50,000 words equivalent hours. And I'm going to do it the same as I did my graphic novel, which is 1/3 writing and research, 2/3 art. I think that's how it's going to work out because I'm a slow artist. In the time it takes me to do a single ink drawing without doing any colour, I can have written 3 or 4 pages longhand. So I think that's how it's going to work out. It might be a bit less writing because I write faster than I think I do, or it might be that I do more writing because I feel that's more what I want to do, and then I can add the art in later. I don't know yet. I haven't got there. It will change as I go along. As long as I get my 50,000 words or the equivalent in hours in, I'm good. But what I want to do is to get a good chunk of stuff written up into here. This is my main reference book. This is my book of shadows that I consider my proper book of shadows. This is where I put stuff that I need to reference, stuff that I need to look up, my correspondences and things. I don't put in here stuff that I already know. I have a previous book of shadows that was from when I was about 15, I suppose, which was a big A4 thing that was very much drawing, writing. It was a lot like my journals, cut and pasting stuff in that I thought was interesting, writing notes, everything went in it. And now I've split it out into these 2 because I go through these really fast. And I want to keep this more as stuff that I need to reference or that I want to write up. So, for instance, and I'm just using this as an example, if I find a spell that I like, that I want to give a go, I will put it in here, and then when I've done it and I've worked it out, or I've tweaked it, or I've decided what I want to do with it, how I want to use it, or I've used the structure to rewrite it, and I've got a result or not got a result, then it will go in here. If it works, it goes in here. If it needs some more tweaking, it goes back in here until it gets tweaked and is complete and finished. So this is finished work, I suppose. Complete stuff. I hope that makes sense. This is my workbook, and this is my reference book. And of course, you know, being a witch, I call my reference book a book of shadows, but you don't have to. You could just call it a journal, it's fine. You could just call it my book. You could also use this for, I suppose, something like a commonplace book. There's a lot of people who just keep a commonplace book and write quotes and journaling and notes and reading ideas, and then do little drawings and things and sketches to go along with them. And, you know, any kind of illustrated book that is words and pictures together, you could use this for. Or even, you know, if you're not very arty, there's nothing stopping you doing all written, you know, the full 50,000 words NaNoWriMo style, and then maybe decorating it with collage pieces or something like that, or interesting pictures that you find. You don't have to be an artist to do this. It's just something, it's kind of a project to get your teeth into for November. Because, coming back round to classes, the way I'm structuring my classes now is every month we take from the theme of the astrology for the month. Every week I do an astrology podcast. We do any major influences that month. So for instance, Jupiter moved sign this month, so we're doing a section on that. That's going up. When have I got that scheduled for? Thursday, I think? Yeah, Thursday. So this month has been Libra. And Libra, the scales of balance, of course. So we've been doing balance. We've been looking at, you know, how do we need to balance our lives? How do we need to balance ourselves and things like that? It's very loose. There's no, I'm telling you how it is. I give you prompts and research and ideas, and you go off and do it how you want to do it. For November, and this is very appropriate with the nights closing in, of course, November is Scorpio. Scorpio is all about digging into the depths of knowledge, finding out secrets, finding out the dark side of things. It's a wonderful time to do shadow work. Starting on Halloween is when a lot of people start doing shadow work for the winter months. Scorpio is also connected to the occult because it's ruled by Pluto, who is the god of the underworld. So, of course, all things considered dark arts and things, that's all kind of wrapped up in his mythology. So, Scorpio, I decided, was a good time. You know, the nights are drawing in. We don't necessarily want to spend our entire evening sitting in front of the sofa watching Netflix. So I estimate that for me, I'm going to need to spend about an hour of writing and about 2 hours of journaling in my Book of Shadows to complete NaNoWriMo. In my Book of Shadows, so NaNoBoSMo. See, there's method in this madness. I told you, it's just a bit hard to explain. Now, 3 hours a day is basically a morning, an afternoon or an evening. And for 1 month to dedicate a morning, afternoon or evening to my Book of Shadows, I think is reasonable. It's reasonable. The weather's crap. I don't want to be outside. I'm probably not going to be doing any urban sketching because it's too bloody cold. December's all right because there's stuff going on indoors. And January as well, you know, you get the winter fairs and things, and the Christmas stuff, a lot of it's indoors. But November is that weird time between when it's too cold to be outside, but it's not cold enough to say, let's just do it indoors instead. So, plus it's grey. I mean, look at the colour of this video. Unless I've managed to touch it up successfully, you can see how blue I look. Even I'm not really this pale, but the light is blue because it's winter. It's coming up to winter. I don't know, I just have this nice cosy feeling of sitting in my little corner with my Book of Shadows and some incense going and a candle going and my pups curled up at my feet and having a cosy evening, drinking hot chocolate and wrapped up in my cardi, writing in my Book of Shadows with my fountain pen. You know, I just have that image in my head, and I think I want to do that for NaNoWriMo. Hence the hashtag NaNoBoSMo. I'm going to be incorporating this, obviously, because doing an extra challenge on top of teaching is way too much. If you're a writer, it's a full-time job. If you're an artist, it's a full-time job. If you're a teacher, it's a full-time job. I'm already doing 2 of those 3. I can't do another one on top of it. So I'm going to use my NaNoBoSMo to show those on my Patreon Patreon page and on my class page, which is my alumni, some of whom have been with me for the full 10 years. Goodness me. There's a lot of people who've been with me right from the beginning. And there's a lot of people who've been with me for at least the last 12 months over on Patreon, because my Patreon's been running, I think, now for 18 months. So, yeah, we've got some long-termers in. It's good. It's good. Anyway, the way Patreon works for my class stuff, if you're interested, I will just quickly skim over this. Go over to the Patreon page, have a look round. It's actually done on an honour system. So if you are desperately short of money, I know there are some who are desperately short of money. We've got a lot of students, we've got a lot of people who are long-term sick and having to pay huge, ridiculous American health bills. You can pay a little less if you want to. It's fine. There is no requirement for you to pay a specific amount. There is a suggested amount. So if you're one of those people who just wants to pay what the class is, there is a suggested amount for you, which is $15 a month. If you want to pay a little bit more, you're welcome to do that, and that gives you access to the lifelong class page, which is over on my own site, not on Patreon. So you get to download all the videos, you get to keep them, you get access for as long as the materials are available. There's no like, well, we finished the class on December the 31st and then you can't have access to it anymore. I don't do that. I've got classes still going out. Well, When Frogs Sing 2014 is still available and you can still buy it. So, you know, I've got some old classes still available, which are gradually going to be going off eventually. But I think I'll probably have a January sale and then I'll close them completely next year. That's another video. I hope that makes sense. I know it's been a bit rambly today. This is because it's a personal project. It's not really something that I've sat and mapped out as a class structure as such. But basically, if you don't want to have anything to do with Patreon, that's absolutely fine. I will be doing weekly updates on YouTube as I normally do. Okay, so it'll be a bit like One Book July. If you are on Patreon or you are interested in joining, come on over and join us. We will get started on November the 1st, but we're already doing some preliminary bits. But also there's a back catalogue, so you can have a look around and see what kind of things we've done in the past and see if it's for you. And, of course, don't forget on Patreon you can join or cancel any time. You're not forced into doing a full year class. So there isn't any, oh, I've paid for a full year class, it's cost me $100 and therefore I feel like I should do it. There's no, oh, but this isn't what I thought it was, and then you have to guiltily go to the teacher and go, oh, can I have a refund, please? You know, there's no difficulty with that, because if you're only stuck with it for a month if you don't like it. You pay what you want. There is a suggested amount, like I say, which is $15 a month, but you don't have to pay that if you can't afford it. Or if you'd rather, you know, maybe you're doing other classes as well, and that's why you can't afford it. That's okay, I don't mind. I would rather, at the end of the day, have 1,000 people paying $1 a month than have 5 or 6 people paying $25. You know, my classes is how I support myself. It always has been. I certainly don't make any money off YouTube. But also it gets more variety in the number of students that I have. I get more varied students. I get, you know, students who maybe otherwise couldn't do a class are able to join in and get involved, and it builds a community, and that's what I like. That's the part of teaching that I like. If you're interested in joining us, my Patreon page is below. For those of you who are worried about it being witchy, don't be. It won't be any more or less witchy than my YouTube channel is. It's just that what I concentrate on is more witchy because I'm doing a Book of Shadows. Obviously it's going to be witchy, but I don't force that down anybody. It's more about showing you how I go about researching and formatting and art and layouts and all that kind of stuff. Like I said before, you can do it for any kind of book. It does not have to be a Book of Shadows. You don't have to be a witch or anything like that. It's, you know, you can do a recipe book if you want, whatever. I just thought it would be a nice change to do something slightly different than just NaNoBoSMo, oh, let's do another fan fiction. Because that's what I'm down to this year, is do another fan fiction. And I don't want to do another fan fiction. I just don't. For those of you who want to join me on Patreon, Links below. See you over there in November. For those of you who are quite happy to hang out on YouTube and just have a look and see what I'm doing, that's fine too. I will see you back here very soon, and I think that's it, but it may not be. I'm sorry, it's been a bit of a rambly video, but I did warn you it was going to be a coffee chat, and they are always rambly. And that's me out of coffee. So, time to call it a day. I shall speak to you again soon, and happy journaling.